a little bit. The state of Illinois opening the door a little bit to the restaurant industry. And I will tell you that from the beginning, when the Illinois Restaurant Association came to see me, I thought this line of business is a perfect illustration of small business hit hard by a pandemic. And the question is, can we save them? Can we do something to save them? So at the outset, if you'd say what Farm Bar turned to that we did in Washington that might have been helpful, I'll give you the other side of that question too. But why don't you start with the helpful part?
Sure. So we have, with our 4 restaurants, we took out 4 triple P loans. And it has been tremendously helpful in 2 of the restaurants. Yes, the Paycheck Protection Loan, I've been talking and working with it so much, I just use the acronym. But the triple P loan has been hugely helpful, particularly in this restaurant and our Edgewater restaurant. Little more of a challenge with our highest volume restaurant up in Evanston, just because the sales mismatch was so huge. And one of our restaurants is permanently closed, so we're sending it back. We sent the loan back for that restaurant.
So these are forgivable loans, and do you believe that you spend it in categories that will be forgiven?
These, Farm Bar Lakeview and Farm Bar Edgewater, we believe 100% of the loans should be forgivable.
And it was designed for paycheck protection, meaning we wanted your workforce to stick around and be there when you needed them to reopen. How has that worked?
That's worked here very well in Edgewater, very well.
Now, there's another program at work, the Federal Unemployment Insurance Program. And I've heard mixed reports on the impact of that program on small businesses. Tell me your impression.
Yeah, that's been a major challenge for us. The fact of the matter has been that getting people to come back to work has been a challenge, in that you can understand it from their viewpoint. They can stay home and be safe at home and make what they were making when they were working.
That program ends July 31st. The $600 a week ends July 31st.
Correct.
Whether it is extended and how it is extended, it's up to us to decide basically in the month of July. We have to make that decision.
Senator, and from my viewpoint, we don't want to create a disincentive for people to return to work. We want to have the safety net for people, and we understand that. But when we have people that have great jobs in our restaurants and don't come back to work because they're, can't make as much money sitting on their sofa and watching Netflix, that's a problem for us.
You told me some good news about this restaurant in this neighborhood and your clientele during the rough 3 months we've been through.
Yes. We had, Lakeview has been a tremendous supporter of Farm Bar. This restaurant immediately pivoted to takeout and delivery, and we are literally selling more food today than we were selling a year ago.
That's amazing.
It's not the cocktails, but it's a crazy world now. I mean, we're selling bottles of wine to go. That was what we would have lost our liquor license 6 months ago. But now that's fine. Cocktails to go. How crazy is that?
So you've got some tables outside, which many people prefer sitting outside.
Sure.
And so forth for obvious reasons. And inside, you're going to have to be careful how you space them. Are you ready?
We're ready. All these tables are 6 feet apart. We could technically add as many as 15 additional seats inside this restaurant or more. We're not doing that. We just want to be very, very careful for our guest safety, for our staff safety, and frankly, to make sure we don't overload the kitchen.
Are there any rules that you're being asked to play by that you think are unreasonable and unnecessary?
Not to me. Look, there are no rule books for how to manage a state in a global pandemic. So when I look at what's happened between, the city and the state and the decisions they've made, and I've looked at what's happened in the other states around the country that are backing down and shutting down again, even though it's a challenge for me and Ferdia as a small business owners, so far it seems like we've got this mostly right. The social distancing, the masks, I would like to see more masks being worn, but there you go. And mine will go right on when we're done.
Yes. Freddie, I want to give you a chance to say something.
Sure.
Tell me on the questions that we've talked about here. What have we missed here? What do you think is an important part of this conversation?
I mean, there's a lot of unease when it comes to employees coming back to work also. So we want to make sure as a good employer, we want to make sure that their safety is our primary concern. And so we've put in place a good training program, retrained our staff, make sure that they're comfortable coming in. We take their temperature when they arrive. We ask them the relevant questions as far as, have you been in contact with anyone? Have you any symptoms, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so we just want them to be comfortable. That's our first call. And then for the guest that comes in, we want to make sure that they understand that we are taking all of the precautions necessary to make them comfortable, whether they're inside or outside.
Do you take reservations?
Yes, we do now. We never did before.
Ah,
Yes, so we had a pivot to that. We had a pivot to takeout and delivery. You can see behind you the large boxes of takeout and delivery stuff that we use. And then the kitchen is a very small kitchen. And so to do takeout and delivery and then to reopen the restaurant is going to be a big, big challenge. Because we're doing so well with takeout and delivery, and we also want to make sure we take care of the guests that come back. It's going to be a challenge, so we have to,
Balance it.
yeah.
before this hit, you had 4 restaurants, now you have 3.
Yes, yes. 3 open, yeah.
Is that inevitable?
We didn't think so. I mean, TJ and I are optimists, and we thought, you know, if we came back with 3 restaurants, we did very well. But we always wanted to keep the 4, and so that was a challenge. It was a challenge dealing with, you know, and the understanding from landlords is, you know, we will work with you sometimes, but then sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're just waiting it out, seeing where it goes. But they're going to be left with a lot of inventory that they're just not going to be able to sell. And so we asked them for some help early on, right when it happened. And most of our landlords have been exceptional and really helpful. You know, Chicago was a challenge and still is, and we're still having discussions with them. So who knows?
Do you want to add something to that?
No, I mean, look, the restaurant industry, I believe, is going to be gutted by this. You know, where we think that we're going to have a couple of our restaurants come through this successfully, 2, maybe 3 restaurants. I don't expect 4 restaurants to come out. You know, Open Table is predicting that 25% of American restaurants will close permanently, and those will be concentrated in restaurants like ours, independent restaurants, full-service restaurants. Not the chains with the big balance sheets and the access to national marketing plans. It's the restaurants that make a city like Chicago the special place that it is. You know, so, you know, from my mind, the PPP, the PPP loan and the economic injury disaster loans have been great, but I don't think it's going to be enough for us.
By its nature, it is a tough business. There's a lot of casualties in good times.
Absolutely.
I know I had one once.
My sympathies.
Everybody has a restaurant story. Yours had a happy ending. Mine ended up in the Senate. So.
Okay.
Well, what's interesting is we opened our first restaurant in 2008. We opened it during
Your timing is flawless.
absolutely brilliant. And it was great because we had good access to cheap inventory in the real estate market. We had a lot of construction companies that needed work, so we were able to open a restaurant for probably less than most people. And also this time, we're opening a new restaurant at the Corinthians Yacht Club in Montrose Harbor. So, you know, this is kind of our pivot.
That's how we do it.
Yeah.
So let me say a few words to camera here, and then if one of your staffers would like to say a word too, I would invite them.
Caitlin, would you like to say a few words?
I'll call you up just a minute. Watch, come right now. If you don't mind sitting there. Say and spell your name for these folks, please.
Yes, Caitlin Partee, K-A-T-E-L-Y-N, P-A-R-T-E-E.
Caitlin, you're not related to a former president of the United States Senate.
Cecile?
Cecil?
Yes,
Cecile?
that's my great uncle.
He was a dear friend. I worked for him for years.
Oh, wow.
Worked for him for years. I got stories I can tell.
Oh, I
Anyway,
want to hear them.
So tell me a little bit about how long had you worked at this restaurant before it was forced to close?
I actually joined the last week of December, so it closed March 17th.
And how did you get by when it was closed?
Stay positive. positivity and just keep going and adjusting, adapting, finding new ways to, get food to people. People want to eat, so what is the safest way to be able to, feed people is what I focus on.
Were you involved in the carryout at all?
Yes, absolutely. I was in the window, putting the food in the bags, saucing things. I was here every day, every 7 days a week, 6 to 8 hours a week, making sure that we stayed alive.
The door's opening a little bit today in Chicago for restaurants. Are you nervous?
No, I'm excited. I'm glad that we have company now.
I imagine some familiar faces are going to be sitting in these chairs today.
Oh yes, I can't wait. We've watched babies grow up in this neighborhood, so
That's terrific.
yeah,
Thank you. Thanks for saying a
absolutely.
few
Thank you for
words.
having me.
I'll just say a few words, and then I think this gentleman will have what he needs. From the beginning, when we saw this pandemic coming, the Illinois Restaurant Association sat down with us and told us, we're going to be the first casualties, and we're an important part of the economy. What can you do to keep us alive so that we're there at the end of this pandemic as we are at the beginning? And we set out in 2 or 3 ways to do that. First, we had this Paycheck Protection Plan, which was a forgivable loan through the Small Business Administration, which Farm Bar and other restaurants used. If they spent their money that was loaned to them by the federal government for payroll, for benefits, for rent, for utilities, for mortgage interest, it was all forgivable when it was over. Our theory was, let's keep everybody together and hope that the day comes soon when we can reopen. I think it's been helpful, Farm Bar and other restaurants. Some places it didn't work as well. We had to come in and change it a little bit, but I think that humility on our part really led to a better program. The second area was for the employees across the board. We have 40 million plus 47 million unemployed Americans at this moment. So we improved the unemployment benefits by $600 a week under the federal program. It created some tension because it started paying to some the equivalent or maybe even slightly more than what they were making on the job. And so the incentive to go back to work may have been affected. We're still measuring that to make sure that people go back to work. But the good news is here, I think, in our state, is that Governor Pritzker and Mayor Lightfoot took a very careful approach on the health care side of this. Look what's happening around the United States of America today. To these swashbuckling, get out of my way, we're going to reopen states. Sadly, many of them are paying a heavy price. The infection rates are going up dramatically beyond anything they've ever seen. So I think our conservative approach, as painful as it might have been for many businesses and many families, may be, fingers crossed, may be seen in the course of history to have been the right approach. I want to salute the governor. There wasn't a day when he was announcing good news. It was always bad news. I want to salute the mayor. I mean, she did some things which along the way were painful to the people who live in Chicago. But she believed, and we all did, by doing the right thing at the beginning, we would see good benefits coming sooner back to our state and to the city of Chicago. So tonight, the restaurant scene starts to open a little bit more in the city of Chicago. And it is a glorious moment because the restaurants really, I think, define this as one of the great cities in America, if not the world. And this Farm Bar has really told a great story too. Their carry-out business kept them alive during the closing. Their loyal customers kept coming back, and they can't wait to be part of the rebirth and reopening of the Farm Bar. Let me talk about a couple things that are unrelated. Yesterday, the House of Representatives passed by a substantial vote the policing, justice and policing bill, which I've co-sponsored in the Senate. The House of Representatives, with 3 or 4 Republican votes and all the Democrats, I think are moving in the right direction. We want to see the end of racism in law enforcement in America. And we are being told by those who are marching in the street, black, white, and brown, young and old, they want to get out from under the shadow of racism, and they don't want their children to be born into it. They're challenging us, the grown-ups in the political system, do something about it. Well, the House did last night, and I salute them for an important bill and one that I think really addresses the issue. We stumbled this week in the Senate, but I think we can get back on our feet and work forward in a bipartisan way. We had a procedural vote that did not move forward, but that should not be the end of the story. We need a bipartisan conversation now in the Senate that says that the House bill is a good starting point for us. I think it's a good end point as well. but let's sit down and have meaningful bipartisan compromise and negotiation. We owe it to the people of this country to give them a law enforcement system they're proud of. And in the memory of so many, from George Floyd and Laquan McDonald and others, who have been victims of this bias and racism in our culture and society, we need to make a significant change and move forward. We still have a week next week to get down to business on this, and I hope we do. In the meantime, we need bipartisan conversation. I'm talking to some Republican senators as well about moving forward on this as quickly as we can. Last point, July 31st, the unemployment benefit program at the federal level officially ends. The House of Representatives extended it in a bill they passed a month ago until the end of the year. We are going to have to extend that program in some form, whether as originally drafted or with some new version, so that the millions who are counting on it now to pay their bills are not cut off at the end of July. We'll be in session next week, gone for 2 weeks, and then in the closing weeks of July is our best chance. I'm pleading with Senator McConnell, the Republican leader, to finally feel the sense of urgency, to sit down at the table with representatives of the Democrats and the White House. Let's get to the next level of relief, the next benefit package. America's counting on it, and I'm counting on Congress coming through on a bipartisan basis to deal with it. Okay?
Thank you, Senator.
Anything else they sent you with?
One thing